Okay, so get this. The folks at Oxford Dictionary, right? They said the word of the year for 2024 was brain rot.
Brain rot, wow.
Yeah, brain rot. Sounds kind of nasty, doesn't it? But here's the wild part. Its usage apparently jumped like 230% between 2023 and 2024.
Whoa, that's a huge increase. Well, what is it? What are people talking about?
Well, that's what we're going to dive into. Basically, it seems to be this feeling, when your brain feels a bit fuzzy or slow, maybe from spending way too much time on easy, maybe even kind of pointless stuff online.
And it's interesting because this kind of worry isn't exactly new, is it?
How do you mean?
Well, I was reminded that way back, like in the 1850s, Henry David Thoreau used that exact phrase, brain rot, in Walden.
No way, Thoreau.
Yeah, he was worried about intellectual decline, people not thinking deeply enough. Yeah. It's kind of fascinating to see that same term pop up now, but linked to like TikTok instead of whatever Thoreau was worried about.
Totally. It's not like silly online stuff just appeared yesterday. I mean, remember early internet memes?
Oh, definitely. GeoCities pages and dancing hamsters.
Exactly. But this brain rot thing seems to have really exploded with newer platforms, especially with younger generations, Gen Z, Gen Alpha.
Right. And what's kind of funny, or maybe telling, is that even the people in those generations, the ones creating and consuming all this content, they use the term too, often self-critically.
Yeah, like they're half joking, but maybe half serious about getting brain rot themselves. Like there's this awareness that maybe scrolling endlessly isn't the best brain food.
Exactly. It shows people are actually thinking about the impact. So for this deep dive, we've looked through some articles, maybe some notes you shared with us too. And our mission here is really to unpack what brain rot means today in our super digital world.
And more importantly, what you can actually do about it, right? If you feel like your brain's getting a bit mushy.
Precisely. We want to cut through the noise and figure out what's really going on.
Okay, so let's nail it down. When people say brain rot now in 2025, what are they actually describing based on what we've seen?
Well, drawing from the sources, it seems to boil down to the negative effects of consuming too much shallow online content. Stuff that's maybe repetitive or super stimulating in short bursts, but not very deep.
Like endlessly scrolling through short, flashy videos.
Exactly, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And the reported effects. People talk about feeling mental fog, finding it harder to focus for long periods, and just feeling, mentally drained after screen time.
Like your brain is full of cotton candy, sweet and easy, but not much substance there.
That's a great analogy, yeah. And there's a potential neurological angle, too. These platforms, they use algorithms.
To keep you watching.
Right. They feed you content designed to give you these little hits of dopamine, that feel-good chemical, through likes, shares, quick, funny clips. And the brain, it can start craving those quick, easy hits.
So it starts preferring the fast stuff.
It seems that way. It might prefer that easy stimulation over activities that require more sustained thought, more effort. It's like the brain saying, give me the quick fix.
Ah, okay. So it's like constantly eating, chips or something. Tastes good in the moment, you want more, but it's not exactly nourishing.
Exactly. It's like training your brain on a diet of mental fast food. Quick, easy, maybe even addictive, but potentially lacking the nutrients needed for, deeper cognitive function.
Okay, got it. Digital junk food. So if we're feeding our brains this stuff, how does it actually, mess with how our brains work? What does the screen time do?
Well, one of the biggest concerns you hear about is attention span. We saw some figures suggesting that back in 2000, the average attention span was maybe around 12 seconds.
Seconds, okay.
But more recently, it's reported to be closer to just 8 seconds.
8 seconds? Wow, that's not long at all.
It really isn't. And think about why that might be happening. We're constantly switching between apps, glancing at notifications, jumping from one short video or post to the next.
Yeah, our phones are always pinging us with something new.
Exactly. Our brains are getting really, really good at rapid task switching, which isn't the same as sustained focus. It can make it harder to concentrate on one thing for an extended period. Imagine trying to read a dense book when your brain is wired for 15-second video clips.
Yeah, that sounds challenging. Okay, so attention span takes a hit. What about memory? Does all this scrolling mess with remembering stuff too?
That's another key area the sources point to. There seems to be a link between excessive screen time and difficulties with memory, particularly short-term memory.
Like, where did I put my keys 5 minutes ago?
Exactly that. And also working memory, the mental scratch pad you use to hold information while you're thinking or doing something. When the brain is constantly bombarded with new, fleeting information, it doesn't always get the chance to process things deeply.
So it doesn't stick.
It might not get encoded properly for later recall. There's even this term, digital amnesia.
Digital amnesia.
Yeah, the idea that we increasingly rely on external devices, the internet, our phones, to store information for us instead of using our own memory. Our internal memory muscles don't get the same workout.
That makes sense. If you know Google has the answer, why bother memorizing it, right?
Precisely. And if your attention is fragmented, you're probably not encoding memories very strongly in the first place.
Right. Okay, so attention, memory. What about deeper thinking, like problem solving?
Well, the concern is that if you're constantly consuming simple, easily digestible content, your brain might get less practice with complex problem solving and deep critical thinking. It's like any muscle. If you don't use it for heavy lifting, it might get weaker.
Makes sense.
But it's important to add some nuance here. Some research actually suggests that academic use of social media, like for learning or discussion, might actually have some positive links to critical thinking skills.
Oh, okay. So it really depends how you're using the tech.
It seems so. Passive scrolling might be different from actively engaging with complex information online.
Got it. Less mindless consumption, more mindful engagement. Okay. Now, you mentioned neurological angles earlier. What's actually happening inside our heads, physically, when we talk about brain rot?
Right. This is where some of the scientific studies get really interesting, though it's still an evolving field. Some research has observed potential changes in brain structure linked to high screen time. For instance, a few studies found possible thinning of the cerebral cortex in young adults with heavy screen use.
The cortex. That sounds important.
It is. It's the outer layer of the brain, crucial for things like memory, attention, decision-making. Think of it as the brain's main control center. Thinning there? Well, it raises questions.
Yeah, definitely. That doesn't sound ideal.
It warrants more research for sure.
Yeah.
And other studies have looked at gray matter volume. Gray matter is involved in processing information and controlling movement, memory, emotions, lots of everyday functions.
Okay.
And some findings suggest lower gray matter volume in certain brain areas might be associated with excessive screen use or things like smartphone addiction.
So less gray matter could mean the brain isn't working quite as efficiently on those daily tasks.
That's the general line of thinking, yes. But again, correlation isn't causation, and it's complex. Interestingly, though, studies looking specifically at addiction to short videos, like TikTok-style content, they sometimes found increased gray matter in brain regions associated with reward processing.
Ah, so that connects back to the dopamine hits we talked about.
Exactly. It fits that picture. They also saw changes in the cerebellum. We used to think of the cerebellum mostly for movement and balance, but now we know it plays a role in cognition and emotion, too.
Wow. So our digital habits might actually be reshaping parts of our brains physically. That's kind of wild.
The research certainly suggests that possibility. And on an activity level, some studies have shown increased activity in brain areas related to decision-making, self-awareness, and emotional processing in individuals with higher levels of short video addiction.
So more activity there.
Yeah, potentially indicating these areas are working harder or are more engaged during these digital habits. It's crucial to remember this is ongoing research. Scientists are still figuring out exactly what these changes mean long term. But it does strongly suggest our digital lives can have tangible effects on brain function and maybe even structure.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just a vague feeling of being off. There could be real measurable stuff happening in our brains. So moving beyond the brain itself, how does this whole brain rot phenomenon, this heavy screen use, affect our feelings, our mood, our overall lives?
That's a huge part of the picture. The sources consistently link excessive digital engagement with negative emotional outcomes. People report higher levels of anxiety, depression, stress, sometimes even feeling emotionally numb or detached.
I can see that.
Think about the constant social comparison that happens online. Seeing curated, perfect-looking lives can easily lead to feelings of inadequacy or missing out.
Yeah, that compare and despair thing is real. All those vacation pics when you're stuck at work.
Totally. And then there's doom scrolling.
Oh, yeah, I know that one.
Right. Mindlessly scrolling through endless streams of bad news. It feels compulsive, but it just drags your mood down and increases anxiety. It's a really negative feedback loop.
Definitely. Hard to break out of sometimes.
Very. And beyond mood, there's sleep. We touched on this, but excessive screen time, especially at night, significantly disrupts sleep patterns. The blue light emitted by screens suppresses melatonin production.
Melatonin, that's the sleep hormone, right?
That's the one. It tells your body it's time to wind down. Screens mess with that signal. And Poor sleep, as we know, impacts everything. Mood, concentration, memory, overall brain health. It's absolutely foundational.
Tell me about it. A bad night's sleep makes everything feel 10 times harder the next day.
Right. And here's a bit of a paradox. Even though we feel hyper-connected online, spending too much time in the digital world can actually lead to increased feelings of loneliness and social isolation in the real world.
Wait, how does that work? More connection equals more lonely.
It sounds odd, but if virtual interactions start replacing face-to-face connections, the quality of social connection can suffer. Those real-world bonds might weaken. We even saw mentions of how generational divides can widen because of internet slang and online culture. Different age groups literally not understanding each other's references.
Huh. So it's like we're building these weird invisible walls between ourselves, even while we're supposedly connecting online.
That's a good way to think about it, yeah.
Okay, this is all a bit concerning, but let's clarify something important. Is brain rot like a real medical condition?
Yeah.
Can you get diagnosed with it by a doctor?
That's a critical question.
Yeah.
And the answer is clear. No, brain rot is not a formal medical or psychiatric diagnosis. You won't find it in the DSM or ICD manuals.
Okay, that's really good to know. It's not like going to the doctor and getting a prescription for brain rot.
Definitely not. It's more of a slang term, a cultural label for a collection of symptoms and anxieties people associate with excessive digital consumption.
Gotcha. So what about things like ADHD? Does screen time cause that?
Another important distinction. ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a recognized neurodevelopmental condition with specific diagnostic criteria related to inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. While someone with ADHD might find themselves drawn to the high stimulation of screens, the current scientific consensus is that screen time does not cause ADHD.
So screens aren't giving people ADHD. It might be the other way around sometimes. Like someone with ADHD might use screens more.
Exactly. For some individuals, excessive screen use might be a symptom or a coping mechanism related to underlying ADHD, but it's not the root cause. Then there's another term you might hear, digital dementia.
Digital dementia, that sounds serious.
It does, but again, it's not a formal medical diagnosis of dementia like Alzheimer's. It's another informal term used to express concerns about technology's impact on cognitive functions, particularly memory. Interestingly, some research hints that excessive passive screen time, like watching lots of TV, might be associated with a higher risk of dementia later in life.
Okay, passive watching.
But, and this is a key but, the same research sometimes suggests that active technology use, like using a computer for tasks, learning, or communication, might actually be protective against cognitive decline.
Ah, so watching TV all day might be bad, but using your computer to learn Spanish might be good.
That's the kind of distinction some research points towards. It highlights that it's not the technology itself, but how we engage with it that matters.
Okay, so it's definitely not all doom and gloom when it comes to tech and our brains.
Not at all. And this is a really crucial counterpoint. Technology is a tool, and it can have significant benefits for cognitive health too. In fact, some studies show that engaging with digital technology, things like searching online, using email, maybe playing certain types of games, can actually lower the risk of cognitive impairment in older adults.
Lower the risk? By how much?
One study we saw mentioned a potential risk reduction of around 58%. That's substantial.
Wow. That's amazing. So using tech can actually keep our brains sharper as we age.
It certainly seems possible, yes. It keeps the brain active, engaged, learning new things, problem solving. Think about online banking, mapping apps, health trackers, communication tools.
Yeah, they make life easier in many ways.
Exactly. There's this concept called digital scaffolding. The idea is that technology can act like a support structure for our minds. It can help us remember appointments, navigate new places, manage finances, stay connected, especially helpful for people who might be experiencing some age-related cognitive changes or have other challenges.
Setting reminders on your phone so you don't forget things, or using a GPS instead of trying to memorize directions.
Precisely. It's about leveraging technology as a cognitive aid, using it in ways that enhance our abilities and support our well-being, rather than letting it passively consume our time and attention.
Okay, that's a much more balanced perspective. It's not inherently evil tech, it's how we use it. So, knowing all the potential downsides of brain rot, but also the potential upsides of tech, what can people actually do? What are the practical steps for someone listening who feels like, yeah, maybe my digital habits aren't so healthy?
Right. Let's get into the actionable advice. And the good news is there are lots of simple, manageable things you can try. The key is starting small and being consistent.
Okay, hit me. What's first?
First off, Control your time. Be intentional about how much time you're spending online. Maybe set some specific limits for yourself, like no phones during meals or turning screens off an hour before bed.
Use those screen time tracker tools on your phone.
Exactly. Use those tools to become aware of where your time is actually going. Knowledge is power. And maybe even consider deleting apps that you know are major time sucks and don't add much value to your life.
Yeah, if it's not on your phone, you can't just mindlessly open it out of habit.
Precisely. Second, choose wisely. Be more mindful about the quality of the content you consume. Actively curate your feeds.
How so?
Unfollow accounts or mute topics that consistently make you feel anxious, inadequate, or just drained. Seek out content that's genuinely interesting, educational, inspiring, or helpful instead.
Be a discerning consumer of online content, a smart shopper for your brain. I like that.
Exactly. Third, and this is huge, do other stuff. Make a conscious effort to engage in offline activities that use your brain in different ways.
What kind of stuff?
Reading physical books or magazines, doing puzzles, crosswords, Sudoku, jigsaws, learning a new skill or language, playing board games or musical instruments. Things that require focus and different kinds of thinking.
And getting physical, right? Exercise.
Absolutely. Physical activity is incredibly important for brain health. Get up, move around, go for a walk, do some exercise you enjoy. It boosts blood flow to the brain and has tons of mental benefits.
Okay. Control time. Choose wisely. Do other stuff. What else?
Fourth, sleep well. We talked about how crucial this is. Prioritize a consistent sleep schedule. Wind down before bed without screens. Create a restful sleep environment.
Protect that melatonin.
Yes. Fifth, eat good food. Your brain needs fuel. A balanced diet rich in fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats supports cognitive function. It's all connected.
Brain food is real food. Got it.
Sixth, manage stress. Find healthy ways to unwind that don't involve reaching for your phone immediately. Maybe deep breathing exercises, meditation, spending time in nature, listening to music, or just taking a few minutes for a relaxing hobby.
Taking breaks away from the screen.
Exactly. And finally, seventh, connect with people. For real. Make time for face-to-face interaction with friends, family, and colleagues. Nurture those real-world relationships. Plan activities together. Have actual conversations.
Put the phone down and look at the person you're with. Real people for a real brain boost. Okay, that's a great list. So let's try and wrap this up.
Okay, so putting it all together, this idea of brain rot, while not a medical term, it taps into a very real set of concerns in our digital age. Excessive, low-quality screen time can seem to affect how we think, how we feel, our attention, our memory.
But it's not hopeless.
Not at all. That's the key takeaway. It's not some permanent, irreversible condition. There are absolutely practical, simple steps you can take every day to cultivate a healthier relationship with technology and protect your cognitive and mental well-being.
It's not about ditching technology altogether then, not throwing your phone in the river.
Definitely not. It's about becoming more mindful, more intentional, using technology as a tool that serves you and supports your health, rather than letting it dictate your time and mental state. Finding that balance.
Right. Well, we've covered a lot here, but it really feels like just scratching the surface of this huge topic. So to everyone listening, what are your thoughts on brain rot? Have you noticed any of these effects yourself? Have you found strategies that work for you?
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Head down to the comments section on whatever platform you're using. Share your experiences. Ask any questions you still have. Your insights could genuinely help others navigate this too. Let's keep this conversation going.
And maybe leave you with a final thought. Think about just one small change, one tiny adjustment you could make today to be a little more mindful of your digital consumption. What might you gain in focus, in calm, in connection by creating just a little more space for deeper thinking and real-world engagement?